Hi guys, it's Kelly and I'm back with another video. Today's video is featuring some of the new Christmas release from Colorado Craft Company and Anita Jeram. I am using the mice lights and the gift exchange, and then I'm also using this one. This is from the previous release. It is Best in Me Dog. I'm just using the sentiment from there because these are Christmas stamps, but I am not ready for Christmas. So I wanted to kind of show you how you could use them just to make a general friend card. You could certainly color them in, a Christmas theme, and there's lots of examples of that on the website. But I just wanted to switch it up. So I thought that I would have my little mice in the background with fairy lights instead of Christmas lights. But I will tell you, in that set, they have a little sentiment that says my favorite color is Christmas lights, and I love that. So I will definitely be using these for a Christmas card at some point this year. But anywho, so what I'm doing is I stamped my background. Because I'm using the stamps and dies, I don't need to make this a one-layer card. You could totally do that very easily. But I am going to make it so that I have the dies cut it out and I don't have to worry about that, especially with the background technique. So before we get too far into the background technique, which you guys know I typically do my scene cards, I do the background first, so that will be up and coming shortly. I did just want to tell you that Colorado Crafts, this is the last day. They're having a 10% off sale. Here I'm just extending the line out. They're having a 10% off sale. And today is the last day. It is site-wide. If you spend over $75, you also get free shipping. And if you purchase one of the bundles, so like this is the newest release, they always do bundles. The entire release with the stamps and dies is 10% off. With all just the stamps, no dies, is 5% off. So that 10% would be in addition to that. It's not one or the other. And I will link the code below if you would like to pick these up. So now let's talk about the actual background technique and the point of the video. So first, let me say that this background technique works specifically with alcohol markers. You could probably do it with watercolors and water, but this one specifically is for alcohol markers. Any brand, as long as they're alcohol-based. You could even do it with Sharpies. So here, I needed to refill my markers, and after I did this part of it, I did refill them. But I'm going in and I'm putting down my shadows, and then the reason I'm just coloring all over it is because for me it doesn't matter since I have the dies. If you were doing this as a one-layer card, you would want to, be more selective about your coloring, like I will be for the second portion of it. But here, because I am just, I'm going to put dies over top of it, and this is just the background, I don't have to be super selective about the coloring around the chords. So I'm just putting down some color. I knew that I was going to have a lot of neutrals in this card. And so I decided to do the walls blue and then like the carpet like a little beige, which would help the white chord kind of pop off. So I'm just coloring in the whole background. The two darker parts in the front are where my cat and my dog are going to stand. So I just put a little shadow there as well. Here is the technique. This is a little bit older. I learned this from Kathy Rakusin years ago. This is my rag. It's a terrible old rag. So you don't even need a whole rag. You could just use a piece of a rag, honestly, or an old shirt, anything that has texture in it. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of colorless blender to the rag. You could also use plain alcohol. And then I'm going to scrape it up with my fingernail just to make sure the tooth is up. And then I'm just going to kind of tap it all over the background. And you can see it's going to give me this really cool carpet texture because it adds the texture of the rag to the coloring. So cool, so easy. One caveat with it, though, I will tell you, is that because you're putting down the colorless blender on top of the coloring you already have done, it can spread. So like I'm being very careful when I'm up here at the top to make sure that I'm not putting down too much of the colorless blender. Down below it doesn't really matter, but you'll definitely see when we do the carpet of the ones that we're die cutting out that I typically do this, like the carpet portion of it first, so that way I'm not going to be spreading out any of my other inks. Like I'm not going to pick up the color. I did make the mistake with the cat and the dog of not doing the carpet first, and I did have just a little bit of bleeding, but thankfully it wasn't too bad. So because this adds more moisture and it spreads your color and saturates your paper, you definitely want to do that first so that you can not pick up first of all, not pick up any other color, but second of all, so you're not spreading the color into areas you don't want. Here is where I'm coloring my wall blue. I just did a little bit more. There wasn't room to put a baseboard. Normally I would have put a baseboard. But there wasn't room to put a baseboard because of how low the outlet is. And the outlet is low, obviously, because it's meant to be part of this little scene. But that left me no room to put a little baseboard in. So it's just like wall to carpet. It is what it is. And I just chose what I thought would be a complementary blue color to the beige carpet. And for this, I'm adding a little bit of shadow where, like I said, where it meets the carpet, and then a little bit of shadow in from the left and the right so that the lightest portion will be mostly in the center. Later on, I did decide to trim this down, and so I trimmed it from the left-hand side. It did not bother me that it cut off some of that darkness. I think it looks... Honestly, I think it looks just like the room extends past that. So that part did not bother me whatsoever. And then I just filled it in with my lightest color. My intention was to use all the colors that I showed you, but then I quickly discovered that my B93 was dried out, so I guess I need to refill that too. So then this part is done, and then we're going to move on to working on the pieces that we're going to die cut out. In order for me to make sure that I color the background in far enough, I've just placed my die over the stamped image and I'm tracing the outside edge with my lightest colors because I know that this means I have to color at least to these points to have everything in my die cut out. So I went through, I did the ruler line to extend that out again. And then I'm going to show you the carpet again, this time obviously being a little bit more careful in the coloring around the cords, but I'm not going to show you the wall again because it is literally the same thing that you just watched in its entirety. So, with that said, yeah, how's life? Been good to you? I hope you had a good weekend. It's Monday. Mondays are always wild around here. You can notice my nose is running again. Allergies. But the weekend was good. Like it was good. Saturday was long. It was long. I'm pretty sure every, parent has felt this way. Like, it was just one of those days where it was like muggy. Like it was so muggy, y'all. You could wring water out of the air. Like it was just like wet blanket air, but it was stormy on and off all day long. In fact, Friday night, when the storms, like the first round of storms were rolling in, typically our puppies don't sleep with us, but Molly's got real high anxiety about storms, about a lot of things, really. She's my dog. Like mother, like daughter kind of thing. But we had some storms that were rolling through on Friday. So then we let Molly in the room to sleep with us, and then we felt bad because Emma was being left out, so then we let Emma in the room to sleep with us. So then in a king-size bed, it was me and my husband and, 140 pounds of dog. It was fine. It was fine. And so here I've done all the same coloring. I'm going in and doing the same, kind of blotting. If you have a spot like I did here where I didn't like how some of them were blending, I just went back in with more of the mid-tone and then just blotted over it again. You can do it as much as you need. As long as you're not oversaturating the paper, it's not going to pill. Alcohol evaporates pretty quickly. So here what I'm doing is I'm going in and using my zero marker, which is obviously more colorless blender, and I am making little circles around the fairy lights as if they would be lit up. Now, I went back and forth about whether or not to do like a yellow glow, but I didn't want them to be mistaken for Christmas lights, so I just decided to leave it white. I just decided to leave the lights white and the glow white. Made for very neutral lights, and I don't necessarily know that I feel like they're shining, but I think that it was the right move. I think yellow would have been too Christmassy. And then I'm going to color the rest of the cord white as well. The same rules apply for this as everything else. Any point where 2 points meet, you're going to add shading, and any point where one object is laying on top of another. Now, with a rat's nest of lights, I mean, and that's real life, isn't it? Like, just, they get so, even if you try to wrap them up nice and, like, tie them and everything, by the time you get them out the next year, it's like, what happened to them? You don't need to be that specific. Like, it's okay if you miss one, or it's okay if you add a little bit more shading, as long as you have some highlights in there, which I'm going to show you in the end how I made sure I had highlights in there. Don't sweat it too much. It doesn't have to be perfection. You don't need to be perfect. So anyway, storms. So then Friday night, the puppy slept with us. Then Saturday is so muggy. Oh, it was so muggy. And we were home, all day with both of our kids. And both, like, because there wasn't anything to do, because we were stuck in the house because it was raining a whole on and off all day. It felt like 2 weeks that we were, like, trapped in the house. It really did. So you can only watch so many movies and sit on the couch for so long before you start to go a little bit stir crazy with two very energetic children. So what did we do? We were trying to find some way to entertain ourselves. He did the Skittles on a plate, where you put the Skittles on the plate with some dish soap, and then it bleeds all the colors. It makes a little rainbow. Then we did bubbles, the bubbles that don't pop. So it's like, hold on, a fourth of a cup of warm water, a tablespoon of sugar, and then a tablespoon of, like, Dawn dish soap, and then the bubbles don't pop. Like, they do if you touch them with your hands, but if you touch them, like, if you have your kids put gloves on, or if they touch them with their shirt sleeve, they don't pop, and you can actually, like, bounce them. So that was pretty cool. But because of the sugar, it is so sticky, y'all. It is so sticky. So after we had that adventure, we had to mop the floor. And then Peanut decided to make a game out of that. So we had to ask each other questions, and if the other person got it wrong, then they had to mop. So it was just like, what's my favorite movie, or what's my favorite color, what's my favorite food, kind of thing. So just like a little, family roundtable get to know you to see who was going to be doing the mopping. And then we had dinner early because, we were bored. And so Peanut, was that the night? Yeah, I think it was. He asked if he could help with dinner, so we were trying to figure out what he wanted to make, and he suggested breakfast for dinner, which is always a win in this house. So we made biscuits and gravy and chocolate gravy and home fries and sausage patties, and that's what we had for dinner. And then by that time, thankfully, thank you, Jesus, it had stopped raining, so then we went for a walk. So that was a nice welcome break for getting outside of the house. It was just like, get a little stir crazy, So here with the cat, I'm following the illustration lines for how I'm adding my shading. And that's just, I chose to go with more of like a ginger kind of tabby look. Because I knew that I had a lot of neutrals in this card. So I was trying to find another way to bring in another color. The dog's gift for the cat is a fish. So I was like, okay, if I do the fish orange and the cat orange, that'll give me another way to bring in some more color. That's also how I selected my color for the blue wall, because orange's complement is blue. So I knew that they would work nicely together. So that's how I picked those colors. In order to switch up the fish just a little bit after I colored it with the same color scheme, I did go in with a bit of a brighter orange, this YR04, and then I just glazed it over the colors that I had, just to make it the shade just a little bit different and the color just a little bit brighter. For the little pink cheeks on the cat, his nose, and the dog's nose, I went with this R20. And then I decided to color the dog black. I'm not really sure how I feel about that in hindsight. I already had so much white and gray and brown that I wanted to do something different. But I don't know that black was the right choice. But nonetheless, decisions were made and I am committed to it. I don't hate it. I just don't know that there was probably a better choice for the black doggy. Even though he is very, very cute. So the same thing for the coloring of the dog as the cat. I just followed the illustration lines that were there. The one thing that I did do a little bit differently with the dog is I had to pay much more attention to the highlights. When you're coloring something black, because there is so much dark color, I made sure to see there's like a little halo around the bottom of his ear. That's so I can make that lighter so his ear will actually pop out. I left his face a little bit lighter so you'd actually be able to see his eyes. And then the same thing for like around the foot that's in front, the little paw that's in front. I left a little halo around like his tush and the back of his foot so that it would distinguish it from the foot that is in the far back. The only place where I kind of lost it a little bit was where his arm is over his body. That got a little bit dark and I kind of lost the arm. So again, I will show you how I go in and fix that because I'm not perfect. Nobody's perfect, but we got to know how to fix it. That's the name of the game. So I went in and my darkest color, or my lightest color, I'm sorry, was supposed to be a C5. In order to fix where those shadows are maybe a little bit too dark and I've lost my definition, I'm going to go in with an even lighter C3 just in those areas because Copic markers or alcohol markers in general are transparent. Putting a lighter color over a darker color will almost kind of bleach it out or lighten it. And so I just went back in there just in the areas that I really wanted to maintain a highlight. I'm going to use the same gray markers that I used for the cords to color my little bone. And then I chose to go with a yellow for the bow. Again, trying to stay away from the Christmas theme. But there's like a little star on the tag for the fish. And the yellow combination uses a lot of the same colors as the orange combination that I used for the fish and the cat. So I really just was bringing in maybe 2 more colors. I try not to have a total crazy amount of colors when I am doing a scene just because I don't want it to be too busy and I want everything to be cohesive. So back to our weekend plans. So then after Saturday, that was it for Saturday. Sunday, we basically spent the whole day getting ready for family pictures. For Mother's Day, and my mom's been asking for them for years and years and years, that she wants all of us to get together to take family photos. Let's go back to the card. So here is how I am making sure that I have a white highlight on the cord portions that are on top. That's also how I'm making sure that my lights are able to be seen is my white gel pen. I like a 10. It's a little bit thicker. So you just make sure when you're purchasing yours, you're looking at the size because there are different size tips for them. An 8 is going to be much smaller. I like a 10. But I'm filling in the lights and then also just adding lines to the parts of the cord that are on top. And this is going to give me that really bright white highlight. So that's going to set apart from all of the shading that we've added to push things into the back. And then I also added some white highlights later on to the bone and the fish and all that. Here's the part where I forgot about the carpet for underneath them. And I almost ruined this whole thing. Watch. You see my crazy hand? It's because I have no idea what was going through my mind, but I decided that I was going to pour my colorless blender onto my rag in a smaller section because I was trying not to bleed out the color of the cat or the dog. But I did it like right over my card. And then some of it leaked out. Thankfully only on my glass mat. It didn't land on my coloring, but I totally would have ruined it. Ugh, Kelly, why? So now here we're putting in the die cuts, and we're going to run them through. I have a Spellbinders Platinum 6. I'm just going to run them through to cut them out, and then we'll be able to put our scene together. Here you can see it fits in just like a glove, fits perfectly into that previous scene. I did decide to go ahead and stamp my sentiment. My sentiment says, my best friend is the one that brings out the best in me. I thought that was super cute since they're giving each other gifts. And that's from, like I said, it's like a mom and dad set. There's a lot of good sentiments in that one too. It's another Anita Duran if you're a collector. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp that down, and then I'll just be able to glue my little characters in. I chose to adhere them all flat, but since they're dies, you certainly could pop them up. I just didn't think it was necessary. So back to, my mom has asked for these family photos of all of her grandchildren, her kids, for years, and we've just never been able to make it happen. And earlier this summer, my nephew, who was the last one who lived out of state, moved back to, he never lived in Ohio. He moved to Ohio. And so all of us were finally in the same state at the same time. So for Mother's Day, me and my sisters bought her a photo session to get everybody's pictures taken, and yesterday was the day. So it worked out really nice, even though it was a little humid. We had super nice weather. You know how normally you're just trying to coordinate like your own family's colors? Well, imagine trying to coordinate your own family's colors and then your whole family's colors, because there was 13 of us. So we went with blue. My mom's choice. So everybody just wore jeans and whatever variation of blue or neutral colored tops that they wanted to wear. And it went really well. It was fast, which is good. We did have to drive a little ways, but the cultural center where we took it had like outdoor gardens with like a fountain, and it was super, super pretty. So very excited to see how those pictures come out. And then all of us girls, because my mom wanted pictures of like each individual family, we ended up with all of us ended up with a family portrait to boot. So that's super cool. So here is where I decided to trim it down. I just cut 1/4 of an inch off the left-hand side and across the top. It just had too much empty space at the top is basically what it happened. And then I matted it. Can you see how I cut this die cut out of the bottom? That's for a different card. Those cards are already done, but the video isn't edited yet. But this blue was really pretty and it matched really nicely. This is Spellbinders. It's from their Wildflower pack. Let me see if I can find the color for you. Partly Cloudy, I think. It's really, really pretty. So because I'm going to like use it as a mat, that die cut portion won't matter because it will be smushed between my card base and the card front. So nobody will know except you because you watched me make it. Then I just put some stickles on, and then that's it. That's the whole card. So I hope you guys will check out that sale today while it's going on. If you have any interest in picking these up, save yourself some money. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I always appreciate your time, and I hope that you try this technique. It's an easy, fun one. So that's it. I will see you on the next video. Bye.